Our reading this week is in Hebrews chapter 11. So if you want to take a peek at that in your Bible as you listen to the podcast, we can kind of show you where that's going. Because, okay, Jeff, Hebrews 11
Yep.
is not typically a passage where we think about zeal and good works. It's a
No.
passage where we think about
Faith.
and I would use the word sacrifice because so many of these
That's
people
part of it.
maybe sacrificed and suffered. And so, as we typically do, we start by throwing Jeff under the bus since he chose the passages for the Bible reading. Why don't you square that away from us? How do we move from faith and suffering to zeal and good works in Hebrews 11?
Yeah, so again, the context, right? We did chapter 10 last week. We talked a little bit about the beginning of chapter 10. Again, the zeal word isn't really prominent, but the concept of Jesus, he's fulfilling some Old Testament words there from the Psalms about recognizing his body has been given to him, not to do what he wants in life, but to fulfill the will of God, the purposes of God for him in his life. And of course, the Hebrew writer's point is, number one, that's what makes him a perfect sacrifice for sins. He's the human who finally did what he was supposed to. But the application then is, so we should look at our lives as given by God to do his purposes.
And isn't that really kind of what is underneath zeal in the first place? Zeal is sort of an expression of a life completely, or a spirit rather, completely devoted to Jesus. And this is one expression of him that grows out of, I think, our love and our gratitude for what he's done for us. So it's actually a deeper idea from which zeal, or we could say zeal, is a part of.
Yeah, it's the animating spirit, right? It's the flame or the fire that burns, that motivates you. And that keeps going even when times are tough or things like that.
I think that's important. And here we are in September. I'm thinking maybe we should have talked about this back in January. But I think there might be a temptation. We talk about zeal to think about a pep rally, where you just have your excitement stirred. And I think there's more to zeal than just being excited.
Yeah, no,
something.
that's that's kind of, you're back to like parable of the sower, right? That's someone who receives the word with joy, but there's no root, and so it quickly fans out. The purely emotional never doesn't last. Whether it's infatuation instead of true romantic love, whether it's just any sphere of life, the emotional untethered to something deeper just doesn't last, doesn't suffice. So zeal is not some sort of naive enthusiasm. Zeal is there's certainly an energy to it, but ultimately the root is a reasoned and deeper understanding of God and the things of God and the purposes of God, right?
And the devotion to him that grows
That's
out
it.
of that.
That's exactly right. That's a key word to that, right? I mean, I always, for me, one of the paradigms is Phineas, who in his zeal drives, the Israelite and the Moabite woman through with his spear. And the idea there is he so understood God and the way God sees these things and was so horrified by the idolatrous and sexual depravity, the pagan, what was going on, that he saw it through God's perspective. But the thing is, it wasn't just he was just angry, or it was a reasoned participation in God's covenant perspective of what was going on.
So Hebrews 11 helps us with that deeper understanding of what zeal is, but it also helps us with a deeper understanding of what good works are.
Well, yeah, because now we're back to, again, we haven't said this in a while, but as good a thing as, taking food to the sick, or, there's just more to it than that. And that's one of those, it's easy to do that and say, I've done my good works, when the it's like Mary and Martha in the kitchen, right? It's not that it's a bad thing, but there's a deeper or more long-lasting spiritual thing here that we need to look at. And so that's the thing is, these were people who did what they did because ultimately they were animated by that eternal hope. They had the glimpse of the heavenly city. They had that hope for a better country. They recognized and they lived in light of the end that God intends for his people. And so that motivated them to do acts of faith that maybe didn't benefit any other particular person, but were good works toward God. Right? And we forget that God needs to be the recipient of good works sometimes too. It's not just, again, acts of service to each other as we think of it, but rightly acting toward God. And so these people lived before God, acted toward God, worshiped God, sacrificed for God, based on this vision of God and God's eternal purpose.
And so you have, going through the chapter, just example after example of people who are like this, a series of profiles
Right.
in good works,
Right.
which sets us up for our Weekend in the Word, which is coming up at the end of November. I pulled that up on my phone, so I would be sure I didn't get the date wrong. But starting on November 4th, that Friday night,
Right.
and then on the early part of the day, Saturday, we'll have the series of classes like we did last year.
Yeah.
And that's what we've chosen for our theme this year is profiles in good works.
Yeah.
Borrowing examples from the text of people who were rich in good works, and I think help grow our own understanding of it as this text does. So
Right.
I think it's an important contribution, and this gives us a chance to look forward a little bit and get you excited about that and be thinking about that weekend when we can see this real zeal driven by devotion to God at work in the life of real disciples.
Right. Absolutely.
So be pondering that as you do the reading this week. So you can not only think about these examples, but the examples we'll be studying in November as well. Look forward to that study.